Hello and good evening, and welcome to this special edition of the Author's Alley, the show to where we the show to where we talk about not only authors and the books that they write, but we also talk about the stories behind those books, and also we talk about a lot more, not more than just books. We also talk about life and everything else in between that. Is this show is more than about just literary. We talk about life issues. We also talk about the purpose and meaning of the books that these authors write. But before we even get into any of that, just want to play a little intro track for you guys, and then we're gonna come right back, and I'm gonna introduce our guest. So give me just a moment, and we'll be right back. 1 second. When we talk about what a trailblazer is, it's usually associated with the words pathfinder, pioneer, or vanguard. So how about we add change agent to that? Welcome to Trailblazers Radio, a unique podcast platform that speaks about a myriad of subjects. We are not afraid of opening closed doors, and we always tell it like it is, period. We are accessible on various social media platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We're also accessible on various streaming audio platforms such as Spotify, Google Podcasts, and so much more. It is our mission to ensure that you are educated, entertained, and edified. And we thank you for tuning in to us.
Hello?
Hey, babe.
Hey, everything all right?
I just been thinking about how much I've grown. Through friendships, relationships. They don't bother me anymore.
That's because God is growing you.
Letting go of my past hurts, removing roots in some old dirt. No, I'm not perfect, but growing up's worth it if I give it to God and I won't get hurt. I'm shutting my past down, I'm putting him first. I'm pushing past my mess ups, I'm in too deep cause I leveled up. He got my mind right, no pain in my sight. Let the river flow, no shade to my past, but please know that I gotta grow. I put a seed in the ground, now he gon' water it down. Oh yeah. If you look at me now, I would never try out. I'm getting more older now, I'm seeing much clearer now. Life has its lessons, so many blessings. No more going back, gotta get on the right track. I leveled up on my haters, they keep switching up like the weather. All I gotta do is keep on making boss moves and I stay rooted like a tree planted by the rivers of water. I'ma keep on soaring, I'ma keep on growing. I see the blessings coming my way, my seed in the ground, let it shine all day. I put a seed, and he gon' water it down. Yeah. If you look at me now, I would never try out. I put a seed in the ground, he gon' water it down. He gives the increase. If you look at me now. I put my seed in the ground, I put my seed in the ground, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And welcome back to the Author's Alley again, the show where we talk about more than just authors. We talk about the stories of these amazing books in there, right? We also talk to these amazing authors. The track you just watched and you listened to, that is Mook Star Dash. The name of the song is called Growth. That's available right now on YouTube. Make sure you follow her on all the social media platforms. Now, without any further delay, let's get into this thing. So the authors that I'm going to bring in to the alley right now are two very, very prominent authors and two very, very prolific authors. They have tag teamed together to write a very, very powerful book that I think will speak to more than just just social justice for women and teachers, period. But I think social justice in its whole. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to welcome Dr. Kendra Washington Bass and Miss Kelly Peaks Horner. Ladies,
Hey.
Hey.
evening. Thank you guys for coming in and taking the time out of a Wednesday, not a Wednesday, Thursday after Thursday evening. I keep thinking it's afternoon because it's not
It's
day.
dark outside. I know.
Yeah, yeah. But thank you guys for taking the time out of a Thursday evening to hang out with me tonight, and I appreciate that. We're gonna try to cover a lot of we're gonna be here for a good time, not a long time, so we got a lot of ground to cover. So let's get into this, man. So
Mhm.
first of all, ladies, in no particular order, tell the audience a little bit about who you guys are.
Oh my goodness. First of all, thank you for inviting us. And then second, I think you were right. It's Wednesday, it's Thursday. So we have a saying, it's like it's Blur's Day. That's what it feels like. It feels like Blur's Day. And over the past 2 weeks, it's felt even more like a Blur's Day. So thank
Mm,
you for inviting us. I'm gonna get us started, Kelly,
Sure.
with a little bit about who we are collectively, and then as we have the conversation, Fred, we'll talk about sort of who we are individually.
right.
But both of us are educators. We met back in 2008, 2009. I was working in an education system, and Kelly was working for an organization, and we were her client. And I had moved from New York City to Georgia, and things were very different culturally, of course. And when we met each other, it was almost like this instant connection, because we're so tall. We're both a whopping 5 feet with heels. So when we met each other, it was like we can look at each other in the eyes. The second is we had lots of similar thinking in the way that we plan and we think big, and we are big personalities in the room. And so it was good to like see another woman who was doing who was living in her magic, right? I saw her do her magic. I think she saw mine, and we've had a connection ever since. And a bunch of things happened in our lives since 2008, 2009, both personally for each of us, and then professionally, that led us to why we're sitting and talking with you today, Fred, which is
Mm,
those stories, both dual and individual, is about our leadership journey, our journey as women in leadership, and specifically as women in leadership in the field of education, and our observations of what we saw our peers and women, our sisters, I'll just say that, I'm not going to call them colleagues, our sisters go through, but also what we went through. And that led us to, I'm going to use the word unwrapping our own conditioning, and second to that, unwrapping what it means for women in leadership moving forward. We would have not guessed that this book at this time would have this deep of a meaning as it does in
mm.
this moment. And we hope to get into some of the particulars of that in just a few minutes. So I'm gonna pass it back to Kelly to give some more context, and then you take it from there.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Well, and I love the way you say we were both dreamers.
Mhm.
I call them, sometimes I call them my whiteboard partners.
Yes.
People who, you just spend time thinking about what could it look like? What could it be? And in this particular case, for Kendra and I, it was about schools. So what could schools really look like for kids? What could that experience be for students and for teachers? And so we both had that in common. The other thing we had in common is, and you'll see this in just a few minutes, Fred, is that we both talk really fast. And so we would start something, finish each other's sentence, and look at each other. And I had been used to coming to the district for a while and talking to other people who had been in Georgia for a long time, and the experience of talking fast was not one that I was used to. So it was more of a very slow kind of conversation. So it just sparked. It was just a spark from that moment. The only thing I would add is that whatever your belief system in the way the earth moves and the world moves to bring people together, it was almost like two puzzle pieces that fit perfectly, because we both went through some work stuff that
Mhm.
was the same and very different. And I had gone through it about 2 years before Kendra went through it. And as I was coming through that, she was going in, I call it the tunnels. I was going into that tunnel. She was going into it. I was coming out. She was going in. And I think the world brought us together to have conversations around, what did you learn? What did you experience? What are you going through right now? Let's talk about it. And we spent a lot of 2020, just 2020, 2021, talking about it. And I bring that up too, because 2020 is not insignificant in our relationship and our friendship and what brought us here today. We all know what happened in 2020, right? We were all locked down from COVID. Schools never closed. I always say that schools never closed, but they had to pivot and shift and do some things, and educators were really suffering in their well-being. But at the same time, the world saw and was going through a racial reckoning with the murder of George Floyd. And Kendra and I had already started some regular conversations, and were able to have conversations at that time about, what did that mean for her? What did that mean for me? What more do I need to learn? So I want to put that out as part of our foundation, because I think that's a really important part of what got us where we are today, and what continues to drive us in the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And by the way, like, I live in Georgia and Kelly lives in Virginia. So we don't see each other on a regular basis. This is how we see each other, is by talking on the phone or through Zoom. We meet every week to check in with each other. And we've been meeting every week since 2020. Like, we almost like have not missed a beat in terms of being together. But, so there is this, physical divide between the two of us, but that hasn't stopped us from trying to build an empire to support women.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
So
do what we do.
the untimely death of George Floyd is kind of a very strong starting point in you guys' relationship. I could also say probably subsequently, maybe there are maybe some other points that may have happened as well. There are more than just George Floyd who were untimely left from here. There's a few that sit on the tip of my tongue, but I think George Floyd is probably the most prominent one that sits out in my mind, and that's a very powerful starting point for you ladies. I mean, and you guys had discussions on what this meant for both of you, how you guys viewed it, and what perspectives you guys looked at it. Did you guys come across any consensus as far as how you guys viewed it?
Yeah. So, I got to lift up Ahmaud Arbery, and I have to lift up Breonna Taylor, who is still trying to get justice for her, with most recent sort of civil cases related to her unnecessary death, her slaughter, and others, right, who we've witnessed over time. What I think, a couple of things happened that made our relationship and our conversations more poignant, deeper, and richer. And that is, the shutdown did a couple of things for me. It gave a certain amount of silence enough to hear. That's the best way I can describe it. It's this moment of stillness to hear myself, not to hear everyone else. I mean, as a Black woman walking in this world, there's a lot that I hear that Kelly wasn't hearing as a white woman, right? So we started to unpack that, and she'll share her personal story about what racial work she had been doing prior to the both of us together. But that stillness allowed me to hear my thoughts and to interrogate my current situation. I think most people were doing some of that, whether they were just like, look, I'm not going back to my job. I'm not doing this, right? My health, how people are treating me. Like we started to see people being fighters for their own lives in that moment, both like hurt, like very specifically and sort of figuratively. Well, so was I. And when I started to examine how some people who saw it, you know, just like, oh, how could it be? And I'm like, girl, God, like, sit in my skin for a second, right? So it's like now you just now thinking about it, but for the fight that we have in schools to tell the actual history truth and the fight to get someone to believe us in all types of things, in all types of venues, it just had me going, am I doing what I love to do in the space that I love to do? Am I giving myself enough of the credit? Am I being, and I'll say this, sort of so assimilationist that I am almost like bringing myself to a small space? And I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore, because I was able to hear myself. I was able to listen to the authentic Kendra was able to talk to me and tell me, girl, you losing yourself. And I mean, there's a reason why our book is called Unwrapped. Like that moment in the months after was bringing me so much clarity about what I had done to myself in order to feel like I'm worthy, I'm belong, I'm all like I created another person.
Right.
So when I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't recognize her. And Kelly was able to see me transform in that way. And I think what makes our relationship a little magical is that we are cross-racial partner in
Right.
it. And we're having these very, very open conversations about race. And I'm having this conversation with a white woman who is not asking me to help her figure it out. Like I'm not in education mode with Kelly, which has not been the case for some of my other friends or colleagues who are just like, could you just tell me, what do I need to do to that was my fake white girl voice. I don't know. What do I need to do to help me understand? And I'm like, so you want me to do your work too? You not even willing to do your work? And that was not Kelly, which was kind of surprising. Like, okay, she's not asking me. So that point of George Floyd, and while that was horrific, I think Breonna Taylor, I felt more of an affinity to her as a woman just trying to get some damn rest at home. And she killed for getting some rest.
Unconscionable.
It's just like, damn, where are you safe as a Black person in this country? Where are you safe as a woman in this space? And that really hit me. I was like, I'm a Black woman. I have 2 Black sons. They could easily have been George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. That mix right there had me going. That set me on the trajectory you see right now. And then other things that just made it like so clear that I could never go back to the old Kendra, because the one who was like sitting in wait, she came out. I can't stuff her back.
Nah.
Nah,
Too late for that.
Yeah, that's too late. So Kelly, I mean, I think your take on it would sort of help to see like both sides of how we moved and why we created this book.
Yeah. So So when we were going through that racial reckoning in 2020 as a nation, I did what all other white, not all other, let me take that back. What many white people did, and I started reading all the books, and I started learning all the words, and I started realizing some things I didn't know, maybe relearning some history I didn't know, right? So, I read Kendi's book. All the white people were reading that book, and then we go on to, and there are two things that I think pivoted me. Well, actually, I say three things that pivoted me to why I was doing that work. One of the things that Kendra learned about me while we were writing this book took us 2 years to write.
Mhm.
And I can stay in my head. So I would write a chapter and it would all have data says, research says, and she'd send the chapter back and go, I don't see you anywhere in here. Where are you in here? You need to rewrite this. I want to know this. I want to know this. And so I think when white people come to starting their journey around anti-racism, we tend to come to it from a very intellectual standpoint. I'm going to read the books. I'm going to learn some things.
Mm.
At some point, we have to, I'm going to use the word pivot, but we have to pivot to why are we even doing that? And the couple things that I think changed the reason why I wanted to stay on that journey was one, and if there are any white folks out there listening, here's where start with truly understanding what white supremacy is. Put the books away and pick up the books around white supremacy and the pillars of white supremacy.
Mm.
We don't know that. We are that, so we don't know the impact it has, and we need to understand that. The other thing that changed it for me was, and we write about this in the book in a chapter around allyship. Allyship is 101, right? So allyship is reading the books, knowing the words, going to the book clubs, doing all those kinds of things. Allyship is I'm going to wear a blue bracelet.
No, no, please, no, it ain't.
Ally, we think it is. We think it is, and that's why I say allyship. I call it allyship 101. It's just the beginning. You're dipping your toe in, right? You're just dipping your toe in. And then there's a video that I found with Dr. Bettina Love, who is an abolitionist teacher, professor out of Columbia University, where she talks about the difference between being an ally, an accomplice, and a co-conspirator. And what I tell my white community, and what I want to tell my white community, if you're listening, is you need to move from allyship to being a co-conspirator. And so what is a co-conspirator? A co-conspirator is when you're willing to risk something for the betterment, on the behalf of communities, people whose voices have been drowned out, who have been suffering from systemic racism, who are suffering under white supremacy culture. I'm willing to risk something. Everybody has currency, right? And my currency is my whiteness. And I can spend my whiteness on behalf of someone today, and it comes back to me tomorrow. So I don't lose that whiteness, right? Being a co-conspirator is action. And so as I was making this video the other day, I was talking about, marching is 101. Allyship 101, wearing braces is 101. But if we don't do anything after that, we stay in this performative allyship where we want to get to as co-conspirator. And so one of the things that Kendra helped me to understand in all of our conversations we were having, and Kendra, I'm just going to go into how we got titled the book.
Yep.
So we're having this conversation one day, and Kendra was still working with her former employer. And she said to me, Kelly, I want to run something by you. And she said, and this is after she had kind of gone through her own, this is a new Kendra. I'm rediscovering myself. I'm going back to who I am. And she said to me, I'm thinking about wearing my head wrap to work tomorrow. Okay. So as a white woman, I'm thinking,
Like, huh?
it's a headband. I wear headbands all the time. Sure, just put a headband in. Why we got stuff to do? Why are we having this conversation? And I could see in her face as she's trying to explain this to me that it wasn't what in my head what I was thinking of. But I persisted, right? I kept going on where, okay, now I'm going to fix this for her, which is, another component. I'm going to fix this for her. And fixing it means now I ask her the question, well, is there a policy or regulation that keeps you from, that's my white girl voice, Kendra, that keeps you from wearing that? And she just looked at me kind of like, what the hell are you asking me right now?
Right.
This is bigger than, I knew in that moment, I saw it on her face. She didn't have to say a word. I saw it on her face. Kelly, you need to be quiet. You need to ask yourself, why are you even talking in this moment? She needs to tell me this. And she started to explain to me what statement that would make if she walked into this school system in Georgia, outside of Atlanta, with a head wrap on. And I had already known her experience of how she was molded and how she came to even this emergence, about being told, what to wear, how to wear your hair, everything that Black women go through. And here she is saying to me, I want to break away from that. I want to break that bond. I want to break where she's been bound by those kinds of restraints, and I want to do something else. So I knew in that moment, just by looking at her, I needed to shut up and listen to her. And she explained to me what this meant. So after we talked about, I said to her, look, I'm here for whatever you decide to do. I'll support you. Send me a picture in the morning and let me know what you decide. She said, okay. Next morning, 6 a.m., I get a picture. She said, this is what I look like. And she had that darn head wrap on and she looked stunning. And that's the only thing I said to her. Stunning. You look beautiful. And she wore it. I'll let you tell the rest of the story. But that's where the title of the book, Unwrapped, comes from. That story, because it really was, for me, as her white friend, it was that moment around, I will never arrive at, I've learned it all. I know how to do it all now around racial understanding, it is a lifelong journey for me to unwrap all of the racism that I've been raised with and that's inside of me. I have to unwrap that. This is a lifetime. It doesn't end by just reading a couple of books. And when I'm in certain situations, I need to just be quiet and listen and learn and try to understand and move to co-conspirator and say, how can I help? What can I do? Let me block for you if I need to block for you. Let me have conversations if I need to do that. Whatever it is that I need to risk, I need to do that. So those were some of the pivotal moments for me that helped, I think, when Kendra and I then started to write the book. Hopefully I became more of a co-conspirator with her to do the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
That, I mean, and before you go, because I just have to say that's I think that's a lot for any person to take on, irrespective of, race. I think that you taking that step to kind of just pull yourself out of it and just kind of just be quiet and listen at that point, that I think that proved that I think that's a move more from just allyship. That's a move toward being the co-conspirator part, because now you're actively listening and not listening just to hear, but you're listening to understand.
Yeah.
And then you're moving in that mode of just, okay, now I've heard what she said. Now I understand what she said. Now what's my next move? How do I help her? How do I help Kendra move in this way to where she's going to be able to succeed? But also in the same instance, Kelly, you're counting up the cost.
Sure.
You
Oh
know, you're
yeah.
counting up the cost because we don't know what we don't know what something we do in life cost until we actually do it.
Correct.
Right.
And when you counted up the cost, you're like, okay, and you've already analyzed in your head. I don't care what the cost is. I'm gonna pay it. I'm gonna pay it whatever it is, whether it's low or expensive. I don't. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But I think one of the things that comes to my mind and what you said, I think those people who say that they are allies, they have to start counting up the cost instead of
Mhm.
just saying I'm gonna do this, do it, and then you know I'm not gonna say consequences be damned because to do that is more like we're throwing because more being willy nilly and not understanding what that means, the overall meaning of what it means. But carefully count up the cost, and then whatever cost it is, you know, some people will pay it with a grudge, but it sounds like from my understanding and just listening to you, Kelly, you don't mind you pay that cost with a smile on your face.
Yeah, I mean it's cost, but it's what is the risk that I'm willing to take on behalf of my friend? You
Yeah.
know, and it doesn't. Again, I go back to my currency is my whiteness,
Mhm.
and so even if I spend that today, I get it back. It doesn't go away. I get it back. So whatever it is, it's just the question is if you're going to move from ally to co-conspirator, which is where we need to be, then the question is what are you willing to risk on behalf of the people who you claim you are an ally for?
There it is.
Hmm.
A great question.
And I think of it like there is you can see on the surface maybe there's a risk that Kelly is taking in doing what she does. There's a risk for me as a Black woman in trusting her, and we got to get to like the current moment because the risk is even greater right now as we are a
Mhm.
pair. And the other piece too is reframing that from it being a risk to what is she actually gaining? What am I gaining from this relationship? And what is she gaining from the relationship that she may not have gained before? Look, I say November is the November moment. This is the time
Mhm.
to snip its fall, prune it. There are people that have been in our lives who I call them the succubuses. They just take the last bit of water out of you. Why are they even part of your circle? They're doing nothing but only taking and not giving. So when we talk about the risk or the cost, I think about it. What am I earning in this relationship? What are we earning together that is showing our children and the people who love us and who we love what this relationship can look like? What do women who are very solid in their purpose look like to fight for not only the fact that we deserve to be in the roles of leadership and not have to wait for someone to tell us that we are, but that we can do it really well and do it in service to the kids. I mean, this is all in service to kids. If we're continuing to perpetuate, our children are watching that that's the way they should be socialized. To always see that a male, white male, is the person in leadership power. And that someone who looks like me or someone who looks like Kelly does not get a shot, doesn't deserve it. Heck, you don't even have to be qualified to be in leadership. But we got to do 10,000 check marks and hurdles just to get half the crumbs. So we are in this relationship through Lucy Leadership Project and through our book, starting with helping women to understand that they are already good enough.
Mm.
That there is nothing Listen, let me just jump right in here. After what we are watching over the last 2 weeks in terms of who is getting selected for cabinet level positions, people who have absolutely no experience in some of these roles. I know for sure, then heck, I can conduct brain surgery tomorrow. Kelly, you can be an astronaut. If that's what we playing, right? So no more of this. We gotta wait to see if we can get our doctorate. I did that. I mean, you see a DR in front of my name. I followed every last rule and did all the stuff. And it didn't get me to the holy grail that they said it would. So women, I don't care if you just now born, you can be a leader. Listen, press apply. Stop waiting, because apparently for some of our male counterparts, it doesn't matter. And we will jump through 1,000 hoops to get there. We are already good enough. We have already proven that we are worth it. And we have to get out of that conditioning that we have to wait. Now, I'm saying this, but underneath all of that is some serious stuff. Women are typically the main caregivers of children, and now we are in the sandwich generation. We are now the main caregivers of our elderly parents, and still the world has not caught up with the fact that we have lives outside of the household, and that our partners, whether they are our spouses or our partners in love, have a responsibility to take up that mantle as well. Right. But till they catch up, we are stuck in this interesting dichotomy of, yes, I want to be in this role, but then society still thinks I need to be here. And the campaign, the biggest sort of stage that we saw of a male and a man and a woman sort of vying for this leadership position, we saw how the country responded to them by race and by gender. And it became
played out.
Yeah, it became real clear what we are still socialized to believe, and that is white males in leadership is the archetype.
But you know what though? It brings what you guys are talking about. It brings me back to my time in the military, in the Navy, to where the person who was my immediate leader was and I was a dental assistant, so I was up under me and a dental officer. Me and an officer was always paired up together, and this one officer that I had that I was always paired up with, and we were together for the 3 years that I was there. She was a lieutenant. She was a lieutenant at the time, but then she got while I was there, she was promoted to lieutenant commander.
Okay.
And I will say this: the greatest pieces of knowledge that I ever received in my time in the military, in my time in the military, was received from that woman. There were so many things that she taught me, as far as certain standards of behavior, standards of how to present yourself, standards of attitude, how to stand tall amidst incredible and daunting odds. Most of the lessons that I received were from her, and there were times where she would notice that I'm not behaving in a certain way, or that I may be off, and she would always pull me to the side, and she would always talk to me, not in a condescending or a mean tone, but in a caring tone, a stern yet caring tone. Hey, look, and we weren't supposed to call each other on a first name basis, but she knew, we both knew each other. We had both had this relationship, this working relationship, to where I knew her tendencies and she knew mine, and we called each other on a first name basis. She said, "Fred, I know this is not you. I need you to get your shit together." Dust yourself off. It ain't that bad. Just, just work to continue to be a better person and a better individual. And those were the greatest lessons that I picked up from her. And I'm not saying this to say that a guy can't do the same thing, and that's fine. And I'm not saying that to be put man versus woman in any of that nature. I'm just saying it to emphasize this particular point, that some of the greatest knowledge that I received came from a woman, and someone that was very knowledgeable about what she was doing and who had worked her ass off to get to the pinnacle to where she was when I left. When I discharged, she was still a lieutenant commander. But for me, the thing of it is, and I knew that she was working hard to get to that place. And when she got that rank, I was the first one to congratulate her.
Mm.
I walked up to her and gave her the biggest hug and said, "Congratulations, you deserve it." Now I wasn't supposed to do that, but I was genuinely happy for her.
Yeah.
Because I knew she had worked her ass off to get here, and I knew what she was going up against. There were other people, male and female, that were going for the same rank and things of that nature. And making rank in that particular field is, whether you're enlisted or you're an officer, is very, very difficult. I was lucky enough to walk out to be discharged as an E3, and I had worked to try to get E4, but it was difficult. And there were times where I took that next test to get that Chevron and Crow, and I failed. And then she always told me, "Look, there's always next time. Just be better. Just do better. Make sure you're reading up on the things you need to do. Make sure you learn the technical aspects of what you're doing." No enlisted person did that for me. It took this officer who saw immense potential in me to talk to me and encourage me. That's why I say some of the greatest lessons I received came from her, especially in my military career. And some of those lessons still kind of resonate with me, even me being almost 20 years out, almost 19, 20 years out. Though, I mean, and this is not, and again, I'm not saying this to say man versus woman, because this is not a conversation. We're not having that conversation, nor am I going to make it the forum for that. But to hear you guys talk about, women in leadership, I feel that, this is me. I don't care who you are, whether you're male or female. If you can do the job, do it.
Yeah. That's what we believe the same. And yet the reality is not that.
No,
well, and that's why I would say it's not man versus woman. It's women versus the system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the system that we're up against, where,
right.
Especially in education, women were never supposed to really come out of the classroom, because we are the born nurturers. We're the ones that take care of the children. If you look at the history of education, and there's this prototype of a leader in education that is white, male, cisgendered, with a spouse at home to take care of the children, so he can do. And so when we are trying to navigate and thrive in this system, that's the prototype we're coming up against. We're coming up against this prototype that is, okay, we're going to give you the job, but we need you to be out 7 nights a week. We need you to be out till 8 o'clock. But yet society hasn't caught up with our familial responsibilities, where we're still taking care of everything Kendra just said. So, and that doesn't say that there aren't some, spouses and partners out there that are helping with that. But that is why it's hard for us to and we wrote the book, and we started the business, which is where the book is housed, the Lucy Leadership Project. We started it for a very specific reason. And that is, the numbers don't move, and they're not moving very much. What I mean by that, over 80% of the profession of teaching is made up of women. And depending on the numbers and depending on the studies you look at, less than 30% are sitting in the C-suite. our superintendents, our district level leaders. And when you then drill down to the numbers of women of color, the numbers are even worse.
They're in the
Black
single
women and women
digit.
yeah, they're single digits. And we've ebbed and flowed in those numbers where they've gone up sometime, they've come down. But if overall, the average, we're pretty stagnant. They're not moving. And so when Kendra and I started talking about women's leadership, and we said, what's our mission? Our mission is quite, and we are bold about this mission. The mission is to get more women leading school districts. And there's a second part of that, and thrive in those positions, because we sometimes arrive at those positions, but we are suffering so much in our well-being and our personal life in order to get there. And
Right.
so we wanted to make it clear that women don't need to be changed. We don't need to change ourselves. We need to unwrap. We need to put down some ways that we've been socialized. I mean, writing this book, I discovered, I probably really didn't know it this clearly, but I discovered I was raised to be the peacekeeper in my family, which is why I didn't speak up a lot at work. You know, when I was going through my own kind of work issues, because I had this conditioning to just keep the peace, keep everybody happy. And so I needed to unwrap that and put that down and figure out, how do I speak up? So it's not where we want to change women. We want to bring women and create this community to say to women, let's go through this. You're going to go through this journey individually, but we also want you to go through it together. Create your own unwrapped communities and go through this unwrapping process together. Because the data shows that men, when they reach the level of assistant principal, they wait 2 to 3 years to apply to be a principal. Women wait 5 to 6.
That's kind of a broad separation of that.
Yeah,
I mean,
because we need one more certification, we need one more degree, we're not quite there yet. And men step into it and go, yeah, I see how to do this. And so so there's that confidence level, and I wouldn't even say it's confidence. It's a conditioning. And so the topics that we have in the book are are very specific. One, they're very similar to what Kendra and I both went through, so we know these issues. But also, it's to help women go through this journey of just unwrapping what they need to unwrap, so that they can then, wherever you want to go, you can go, but you can thrive there as well. And then so we talked about the word co-conspirator. The other word that we use that is part of our value system is disrupt. And so that you can disrupt the systems that you need to disrupt in order for not just you to thrive, but for all the other women to thrive.
Yeah. And let me give you an example of that, right? And that is when we are going for particular positions, to be very clear about what we want and what we will not do. Now, this is where the risk is, right? That some people, we've heard women say this, I can't do that. And we're like, and who told you couldn't, right? So where does that come from? So having them even see the system. For example, typically men become superintendents in school systems if they have been a high school principal. There's this idea that a high school principal is typically like the mayor of the community. All the schools sort of funnel to the high schools. There's boosters, there's foundations, they're pretty large. There's so many activities, and high school principals are typically male. And some of those principals have also been coaches in previous lives. As teachers, they were athletic coaches or they taught special education. And so that is the sort of the trajectory for the superintendency. It kind of looks like that. Well, main roles of women in education is curriculum and instruction. We tend to be teachers, instructional coaches, curriculum instruction, and that leads you to maybe a district level position where you're over curriculum instruction and assessment. But it doesn't translate into the superintendency. That's not the typical place. And when women want to become principals, They are coached to be principals of elementary schools and maybe middle schools, mostly elementary schools. Why? Because there's this idea they have families, and in the elementary school, you don't have as many duties after school. So that should be okay for them. There's never an encouragement for women to be high school principals, when we know that is the typical trajectory to becoming a superintendent of a school district. So women have to see the system too as what it's doing to keep them from getting to their desired result, which is to become a superintendent. And so when they're being coached or when they're being tapped and told to do curriculum instruction, or nothing wrong with that, or be an elementary school principal, they have to go, I want to be a superintendent and I want to be a high school principal.
Mhm.
First of all, high school principals make more money. It's the highest paying principal job, a high school
Right.
principal. They make more money there because of the number of kids and the number of programs, and they get supplements on top of that. So even then, not only are you reducing their women's ability to gain the opportunity to be a superintendent, you're also relegating them to the lowest paying jobs within the school system. And people are like, no, everything should be equal. It is not equal in the education system either. There is
Nope.
disparity. And women are typically paid less than their male counterparts. Again, because of what is typically seen as a male role. Coaches, in some cases, special ed male teachers will be asked to do some supplementary things to get additional pay on top of that. While for us, it's like, if you just tutor or stay after school without any compensation, we know you want to do it because of the because of your calling. It's like,
Mission.
no,
Calling.
this dude ain't getting, he got the call to get extra pay, and I'm just getting the calling of a pat on the back. No. So
Calling. I mean,
yeah,
I don't mean to
and
interrupt you, but to me,
yeah,
that it just sounds extremely ridiculous. How, I mean, and
but that's what
It's exploitive, actually. It's
yeah, and
exploiting our
that's
mission.
what happens. So I'm just saying, in terms of not fixing women, as Kelly was saying, it's like want them to be very keenly aware of how they're being pawned in the system that keeps them from getting to the leadership positions and roles we know that they can do very, very well.
and see, that's a pinnacle. I mean, and who doesn't want to reach that pinnacle? Who doesn't want to get to that top level of that, what that is, but you just mentioned the barriers to that.
Absolutely.
There, the path, like, and I can see that, I can visualize this right now. The path, like two paths, guy right here, woman right here. The path is clear
Mm-hmm.
for this person, for the guy, because there's no opposition there. No one's
Yep.
gonna oppose him. No one's going to say, hey, you gotta do this, that, and the third. No, they're just gonna say, hey, we're gonna give you this, but we're gonna put more pay on top of it. But then here's the opposite path, the path that the
Mm-hmm.
woman has to take.
Mm-hmm.
Twist and turns, hills and valleys, dead ends, roadblocks. I mean, construction ahead, all
For
these things that are barriers to that. And my thing is, if you're gonna make it the primrose path for this one person, you need to make it the primrose path for the other person as well. Because if you're gonna give these opportunities to one person, to one gender, you need to go ahead and give the same opportunities to the other gender as well. Because to me, that represents a unfairness, an impropriety, and I mean also to kind of, for a lack of a better word, and I know some people amongst our viewing audience or listening audience is not going to like me when I say this, discrimination.
I mean, that's what it is. It's purposeful. It's what it is. It's why the numbers are going to remain and how people remain comfortable with those numbers. Instead, what they throw at these women is mentoring and coaching and helping to make them better at being ready for that, when that never is going to come. It's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I just let's put it out there. It's a bold-faced lie. It's not happening. So for women, this is the disruption piece, right? For us, is being able to see when that's happening. The example I'll give you, I was coached, I was coached to assimilate. I was coached to, say certain things, not say certain things, wear certain things. I mean, there's one place where, you talked, Fred, about being in the military, right? There are sort of cultures for which that is. But when you are like told that in order for you to have a seat at the table, you have to really like undo who you are to fit, there is something fundamentally wrong in that. And while that might have been the coaching and mentoring for another time and place, it is how I lost myself. It is how I was like, oh, what am I doing here? And, going back to what Kelly described in the book, we start our book with our origin stories. It's the way that we open up to unwrap how we were conditioned and socialized so that we can see how we sort of moved in life. No judgment around that. It was our survival. And for most people, make decisions in order to stay alive. Right. And mine was like this hustling to try to prove to white folk that I was not a threat. Right? It was like, get the education, get the top tier education that I can get, sort of move out of the hood, do all of the things that would make white people feel like they should not be scared of me if I walk in the neighborhood with them. And that ain't changed. I mean, it didn't matter. It didn't matter that I had a degree from the University of Notre Dame, that I got a doctorate degree. When I walk into a Macy's store, I still get followed. They see my Blackness. They don't see my degree. They don't see my family. They don't see my wealth. They don't see none of that. So it doesn't matter, right? But here I am hustling. And maybe at some point, I'll be liked enough that you give me a chance.
But how can someone see that when something so implicit as bias is already ingrained into them?
Correct. But I'm just saying the things we get taught, the things I got taught as a young Black girl, right? You got to be better than the next person, right? You got to do double, like as a woman too, as a young girl, like how I got to be and say, and all the things that I think a person of color like myself got that talking to. That is absolutely exhausted. I saw someone on TikTok, her shirt just said tired. Like, I want that shirt. Like, I want a dash red. I am not only just tired, I am tired red, right? That mental gymnastics of trying to be something for this group and something for that group is killing us, right? It's the Black woman cape that we sort of wear. We can just do everything, right? The strong Black woman anthem. True. And on the outside, we laugh and be like, Black don't crack. On the inside, we are shattered shards of glass. Yeah. We're dying early. We got hypertension. We don't know why. We got headaches and migraines and bloating and sweating and heart failure at 40 and 50 years old. That's a lot to take on. And that hustling pulls us into the work environment, and we do it in the work environment. And people know we do it in the work environment. In fact, they use us in the work environment. Kendra will do it from Friday to Sunday. She'll do that PowerPoint, whatever, and the colleagues come back on Monday. They ain't do shit. I did the whole PowerPoint and stayed up all weekend, not looking at my family, and I got the work done at the expense. And at the expense of myself, at the expense of my family, but I gave it to someone else in the hopes that I'll be congratulated and awarded with something.
Man,
that ain't happening.
No, of
that
course
ain't
not.
happening, right? So you got to be able to see that that's being done. You got to be able to see how you are being, how your talents, your strengths, your gifts are being used, whether it's being used appropriately or being used in order to elevate someone else. And women in leadership get that. We get the crumbs. We are the ones in the background doing the heavy, heavy lift. And when it's time to present, when it's time to show off, we are in the background.
Arms folded.
And then we mad. We like,
Angry.
we angry now. Now we the angry Black woman. Now here go the cycle. Here go the cycle. And all
Why
I'm
she
just
mad?
saying is, all I'm saying is, y'all stop. No more. And guess what? You absolutely can say no. One of our other workshops, Kelly, that we do is on boundary setting. And it's so amazing how women are just like, I don't know if I can say that. So going back to what I said before, you can say no.
No is a good word, you know.
I love no. My husband can't stand it. I know I love no. But I love no. So Kelly, I'll stop talking.
Well, I was just going to say that that's one of my favorite workshops. Well, the number one workshop we've been asked to do probably over the last year and a half is on well-being, because educators as a collective are suffering and women educators are really suffering.
Mhm.
So we've got to help them identify what is well-being and how do you use that as part of your leadership practice so that you can thrive. The other one is the one on boundary setting. And it's interesting because we have to spend time identifying what boundary setting is, because boundary setting, as my friend Portia says, setting boundaries is not closing a door. It's actually opening windows. And I like the way she describes it. She says it's teaching people how they can have access to you. And so one of the issues for women educators is we allow everyone to have access to us all the time, whenever they want it. And the system benefits from that.
Right.
And the system is set up to do that. Now, I can more freely say no to something than Kendra can say no to something, because as she said, she has to work twice as hard and to prove herself than I do. But if we think about women collectively, the reason women don't say no is because we're so afraid we'll never be asked again. We won't have that opportunity again. And so and these are all integrated, right, Fred? All these things are integrated. So when you go back and look at your origin story and you start to think about, what was I taught about boundaries? Was I even taught how to set boundaries? From very early age, what were the messages that were sent to me about boundaries? When we say to kids, go hug your grandma when she comes in the room, and they say, I don't want to hug them. I said, go hug your grandma when she comes in the room. You better go hug. It sounds innocent, but what you're saying is your boundary is not important. You have to go and hug, and you have to. And so we start hearing these messages over time. And so when we get into systems and we say, I can't say no to that, I'll never be asked to do that again. I can't say no to that because they'll think that I'm just being negative. I don't want to work as hard as everybody else. I can't say. So part of what we do in this workshop is we actually give women words to say no. How can you say no? And sometimes the person doesn't even realize you said no.
Right.
You said no. That you're not going to, I don't have the capacity for that right now.
Right.
Or can I help you find someone to do that? Because I can't take that on. I mean, we still often have to smile while we do it, because that's what we do. We have to smile and say, excuse me, I'm speaking.
Man.
Hello, I'm speaking, but I'm going to smile while I do it because I don't want to make you feel bad. But that's part of what we're doing, Fred, is we're trying to help women education leaders unwrap all of the things that they need to unwrap, the way we've been conditioned, in order to then go into the system with very clear eyes, very clear vision around, it's not me, it's the system. And the other conversation Kendra and I had for a very long time, and Kendra, you've kind of said this, is we do this to ourselves sometimes. Kendra and I have been to, and we've spoken at women's conferences and women's organizations. And we say, we're going to mentor each other. We're going to coach each other. We're going to teach you how to get through that interview. But we're not addressing, okay, so what if you succeed? Then what? Then what happens? The system's still the same. So I'm going to take that high school position. I'm going to follow that man that was there for 20 years before me and was out 7 nights a week and was working 12-hour days because he had support at home and could do that. I'm going to take that. And the same expectation is going to be on me as it was on him. They're going to look at me to say, okay, let's see if she can do it the same way. Rather than in that interview say, listen, the way I do it may look very different than the way Joe did it for 20 years.
Mhm.
But here's what I know I can do. I know I can create a culture where teachers want to come to work every day. And I know I can create a culture in classrooms where kids succeed. So if you give me the chance, I will do it my way. I may not do it Joe's way, but I can do it my way. Now we start to set the stage to say, okay, I can do this in a way that I can thrive in this and I can survive and I don't get sick and I don't do. So, but what we have to do is we have to unwrap a lot of things and put some things down and pick some things up in order to do that. So we do that. How do we do that? We do that through the book. We do that through book clubs. We do that through workshops. Kendra and I do a conversation with the author kind of keynote where we've done that before. Have we gotten pushback? Oh yeah. The minute I say white privilege, oh, the pearls get clutched, and we have to figure out how do you unwrap that word, but you have to start the conversation somewhere. Yep. And so it's a community at Lucy Leadership that we are building for women educators and education leaders. And I don't care if you're leading a classroom, I don't care if you're leading a building, I don't care if you're leading a district, I don't care if you're leading a department. It's leader is a broad term for us. And so we say, come be part of the community. And I'm going to do a quick commercial if you don't mind.
Sure.
December 10th, if you follow us on social media, Lucy Leadership Project, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, I just deactivated Twitter. So we're not on Twitter anymore, or X or whatever that's called. We're not there anymore. We're on Threads. December 10th, and it'll be out on all of that, but we're having a gathering. And we're calling it What's Next, gathering our Unwrapped community to talk about post-election, what's next? What does it mean to dismantle the Department of Education? How do you feel about that? What does it mean for our special education leaders? Because there's a lot of, anyway, what does that mean? What does it mean for women in leadership? What does getting rid of all DEI mean because that's going to go for women in leadership? What does it mean for any kind of positive, proactive efforts towards marginalized groups, whether that's women, whether that's Black women, whether that's all women of color, whatever, members of the LGBTQ plus community that are in our community? What does that mean? Because that's all going to go. So what is that?
The curriculum. I mean, the things that kids will be able to read and things that teachers will be able to say, the content, all of those things. And for us as women, this is a curated space where they can talk about what they're feeling. But we're not going to have a pity party. So that's the other thing. Like Kelly and I, we can cry for 5 minutes. But we got to get to work. Like, what do we need to do collectively going into the next year to keep ourselves as intact as we can and to do this in service of kids? Look, the public school system is the primary education system for students of color. It is the place for those who have wealth and those who live in communities where there is wealth. If the Department of Education is dismantled, they will have somewhere to go. There will be private institutions and stuff that pop up, or they'll have an influx. But the public school system is where majority of the most vulnerable students attend. We have to be ready for them and still give them a quality education that they deserve. They did not sign up for what is about to come.
No.
Nope.
They did not. Right. Yeah. And we're going to be the ones that are going to pick up the pieces. And while doing so, there's going to be a lot of things that are right on the other side. That's their disruption. What's our disruption bag?
Yeah.
And we got to make sure this doesn't happen again. We see the blueprint. What's our blueprint? We don't have a blueprint.
And how do we keep them from pulling us apart? Because and separate, because the worst thing that can happen, which is their intention, is for us to stay quiet, to stay down, to stay low, to be in fear. That's the worst thing that can happen. So how do we pull them together? And then I will add also, part of that discussion has to be within this community. How do we also treat each other and make sure that we hardly ever use the word safe, but I'm going to use it in this particular, and a brave space for everyone, because my community, white women, look at the numbers from the election. We did this. No, and maybe not you did it. I get it. But if you didn't do it, I'm not talking to you. But the majority of white women, our numbers went up when in this election. And so we have to figure out and understand, and I'm talking to my white women community, that white supremacy hurts us. It looks like it benefits us, but it also hurts us, because what happens then is we vote against our own best interest. And so that's part of kind of the reckoning that we do within, because Kendra and I don't shy away from any of those kinds of conversations. And so that's a peripheral part of that conversation that we're going to come together in a place where it's brave to have some conversation.
And yet, Kelly, there is something that we need to also discuss here. Is, as you said, we voted against our own best interests. I would say you also voted in your own interests, because for some, this is like, I don't have to worry about making the decision. I don't have to worry about being on the front line. I don't have to worry about getting out there and doing that work and doing that hard shit. I don't have to do it, like, because my man got it. So yeah, there's some, that was a selfish move. And we know that some have come out and said, I did this because my spouse is the breadwinner. I got to live with that person, or that's my family members. They're going to think of me. That was your own best interest.
Or I did it because my price of eggs are going to come down, and sorry, that's going to hurt the rest of y'all.
Yeah.
So we use the word rumble. We're going to rumble with a lot of stuff, but again, it's not to come in and have a hand wringing, or it's going to come in. It's okay. Where are we right now? Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? And how do we use this community to hold each other up, to support each other, to have hard conversations? And this next 4 years are going to be challenging, and we can't let them separate us.
Exactly. So there was a question that was posted by Miss Rodriguez, and I want to see. I want you guys to see how do you approach that? Now, I guess I'll start with my answer, and if you guys can probably agree or disagree with it.
Okay.
But what I was gonna say that, does moral imperative to break the system live in the same place as a calling? My answer is, in my opinion, those are separate. A calling is something that's what you've been called to do, either by God or by your talent or your abilities. Now, a moral imperative to break the system, it to me is dependent upon the willingness for those who are willing to disrupt said system, irrespective of consequences. That's just how I look at it. But if you guys want to expound on that, or even rebut against that.
Does the moral imperative to break the system live in the same place as a calling? I think it depends on where you sit in the system. I got into education to break the system because it was a calling for the kids who look like me. To me, they were the same for me.
Right.
When I was teaching in the South Bronx, and I know Amy Rodriguez, we taught together in middle school. She's a principal now. But when I started, the reason why I became an educator was because of an experience I had in my college experience, which was not very good. And I was like, there is no way that I'm going to allow children to get to that point or and feel or experience what I felt. And I was like, that meant that I needed to go way back to the formative years of how children are educated in the system to get them to understand that they are worth it early on. And so my small part in my classroom at Community School 6 in West Farms in the Bronx on East Tremont Avenue was that every student in my class knew that they were worth something. They were smart. Like, I don't want to have to do the help, right? They're smart, they're kind, they're important. They were all of the things. They were beautiful. They were smart. I was relentless in my expectations for them. When they were just like, I can't do it, I was like, yes, you can, and you will, right? There was never this pity like, oh, I know we live in poverty. We live in these neighborhoods. This was my neighborhood that I grew up in the South Bronx. I could walk to my school where I was a teacher. So I was very much aware of what they were experiencing. In fact, some of their parents were people I grew up with. So yeah, like my disruption in that space was to get my students to have a trajectory different than what was being told that they were going to be and how they were going to grow up. That was the first thing. And then the reason why I met Amy Rodriguez was because we opened a school, middle school in the Bronx. We had an opportunity to design it from the get-go, like build what we wanted. Oh, love that experience of doing that. So, and that school is still thriving now, and we long gone from there. So yes, the moral imperative that I see as an educator was to disrupt a system that wasn't built for the kids that look like me. So to me, those two things were the same.
Yeah. And I'm going to lean on, I'm going to lean on a little research here. And in some previous work I used to do, I've probably interviewed over 5,000 teachers on a very specific interview to measure talent.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a question on the interview that said, why did you want to become a teacher? And
wow.
We knew that there were going to be a range of responses. But when you say calling, this is what I start to think about. I think about, depends what your calling is. And so if I broke it down to two kinds of responses, we either had the response that was, I wanted to become a teacher because I love science. Mm-hmm. And I want to impart my love of science on kids. I really love math. And I want to impart my love. So where do the kids rank there, right? Where do the students rank? Where's your mission for students? The mission was about the subject. And then we'd have teachers that would respond something like, teaching for me is a social justice calling. It's about preparing my students to have a fair shake in the world, to allow them to, and it would go on with that kind. So if that is how you define calling, then the moral imperative to disrupt the system for teachers, for kids, for the community absolutely exists, because it exists internally anyway. It's part of your mission, right? It's just a component of your mission. If your mission is very different and it's not necessarily, and you don't see teaching necessarily as a component of social justice, then maybe not. Maybe you're there to just do your 6 hours, teach your 3 periods of math, and you go home.
Right.
I like that you mentioned teaching as a component of social justice.
It is.
Let's break that down a little bit. Let's talk about why it is a component of social justice and why is it important to maintain that as a component of social justice.
Oh, good. Let's go right in. Let's stick with some history. Let's talk about what was denied to enslaved indigenous people in this country, because those who enslaved us and those who colonized this country knew exactly if education was going to be given to the enslaved and to the indigenous, then that knowledge would create an equity that they did not want to have. So the denial of education as part of a weapon to keep people enslaved, keep the information away, to keep the indigenous from having some of that knowledge, created the system of segregation and racism in this country. I mean, it was part of the seasoning, right? What did you do to enslaved Africans when they came to this country? They went through the seasoning process. You stripped them of their clothing, you stripped them of their name, you stripped them of their people, and you stripped them of the knowledge. You also stripped them of their food, right? And so you did the same to the indigenous population. You stripped the land, you basically conquered it, you moved people out, you stripped their livelihood, you took away anything that they would grow, put them on reservations that are barren, right? With no resources. The language, you stripped the language. So when you say education has been weaponized as a moral imperative, we can go back to the inception, 1619, as many people want to say. Look, that's my sister, Nicole Hannah Jones. We went to Notre Dame. She's my Notre Dame alum, Pulitzer Prize winner. But 1619, we can go right back to Jamestown and we can see the implementation of that all the way through. You can go into the early 1900s and look at some of the literacy acts denying Blacks from learning to read. You can do the same thing, look at the same with the indigenous people, denying them the ability to read is actually against the law. You can be caught if you were reading a book and it's a crime. And then you can go into Jim Crow and you can look at the systems in which the schools were unequal in terms of resources, in terms of building facilities. I mean, education has been weaponized. And you can look at today with the banning of books, the disproportionality of reading materials, the disproportionality in discipline, in teacher experiences. Children of color have less experienced teachers, dilapidated buildings, lead in the water, infrastructure and asbestos in the buildings, you name it. The fun and education has been at the center. When you take the knowledge and the ability for people to learn away, you keep them oppressed.
I would add two more, Kendra.
Keep adding. I'm on fire and I don't even know what I'm saying.
I would add two more. I would add two more. As you were going through, I thought she's going to say it.
Okay, go.
Communities decide where to build jails and how many beds they're going to need based on third grade reading scores.
Thank you very much. Say it.
That's another one. And then the other one is if learning wasn't an act of, I almost want to say in many ways it's an act of rebellion, but it's of social justice, they would not be trying to whitewash our history.
Correct.
Because if we learn our real history, especially if white people learned our real history, then we would have, how do I say this? We would have a more conscious decision to make. We're either going to try to disrupt or tear down systems of oppression, or we're going to say, yeah, I'm all right with all that.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So the other two things are prisons are where they're built and how many jail cells they'll need and all beds is based on third grade reading scores in a community. And if it was not an act of social justice, we would be teaching our real history everywhere and not afraid of it.
But so I got to ask this question. This is probably going to be rhetorical, and I think I've already answered that question. But I mean, for me, it's just rhetorical. Why is the history, and I'm not talking about just separate history? Why is the complete history of who we are as a nation and who we are as both white, black, and what and every other nationality? Why is that so? What is the big deal to suppress that? Why is that so important to kind of keep that kind of under wraps or up
Because
under
you gotta
under
admit that
closet?
you fucked up. I'm sorry. You gotta admit that you are wrong. And I mean, the whole idea in education, especially in the Senate bill that was passed in Georgia, was the law basically not making people feel like they're offended. Right?
They can't feel bad.
They can't feel bad. And
What's to be offended of?
because you have to admit that your ancestors were the ones who denied the rights of other human beings.
That my ancestors are colonizers,
Right.
and oppressors.
You want to pull that one to deny the original sin that happened in America, and second, this is a capitalistic society. It is built on haves and have-nots. It is built on elites. It is built on who's the one who controls the 1%. Who's the 1% that controls this world?
True.
And when you can take some of that out for young kids, you are perpetuating that cycle of the haves and have-nots. And that's not true. That's why why were people shocked when a police officer killed a black man? Why was everyone shocked there? See, that was like this inflection moment in this country where everyone stopped and saw it for 9 minutes. It wasn't that they read it or somebody just told you, just one kind of video. Like everyone watched that because it was quiet. And you know what? That lasted a few moments, right? And then they forgot. So you know what happened? The next wave was, oh shoot, now we're going to have a more conscious America. What could we do to if we have a conscious America, we got to do something, right? The pop-ups of DEI positions and equity officers and Coca-Cola and Delta and Walmart were all in solidarity for Black Lives Matter. That lasted until everyone got like, all right, we don't want to do. I think we solved it already. Because the children I know, but the children now start to question. The children start to say to their parents and grandparents, Grandpa, like you were around 1954. So tell me, did that happen? And they have to answer that.
Yeah.
They don't want to answer that.
Well,
They
I also
take that to the grave.
And I would add that. So what is wrong with not teaching our proper history? It comes down to white supremacy is a delusion. And so if we teach the real history, we're about to celebrate a holiday in a couple of weeks. And we celebrate it as all the pilgrims come in and all the Indians come in, and they're going to sit and have this big feast and banquet together, right? And we're all going to make little turkey hands. If we teach what really happened and how Indians were tricked into coming, and then they were slaughtered, if we teach that, the delusion goes away. The whole delusion goes away around white supremacy culture. And so we can't have little. I mean, how many times, Kendra, you said it? How many times did we hear you can't teach the real history because it makes little white kids feel bad about themselves because it's their history. Kendra and I have this running joke where when we start a facilitation, sometimes Kendra will say, I want to call in the ancestors. I'm like, don't call in mine. Let's leave mine out of the room because I haven't found the ones I'm going to call in yet. When I find them, I'll tell you who it is, but I haven't found them yet. So we'll bring them in. Those are all the ancestors we're not teaching about, right? So, yeah, I mean, white supremacy is a delusion, and we don't want to break that delusion.
It's how this country has maintained its wealth for certain people off the backs of the most vulnerable. I mean, when COVID wiped out millions of people in this country, and the country was wrestling with how to reopen. The people that we learned who were driving the wealth of this country were women, service workers, mostly immigrants, low paying. They were trying to get them to come back to work. Teachers go back to work. Nurses, you need to go back to work. They didn't even care about the doctors. The nurses needed to go. The home health aides needed to go. The people in the grocery stores needed to go. The cooks needed to go. Like, they were just, those are the individuals that this country needs in order to survive. Low paying labor. And the low paying labor are people of color and immigrants in this country.
Yep.
That's who it is. So when they talk about mass deportation and they're about to send abuela, abuelita, tío,
it's going to shut down the restaurant industry, the hospitality industry,
farming.
California's in trouble.
Yeah, farming, you name it. Teachers, those with visas who are teaching maybe other languages, things like that, they're going to be gone. If what happens, and we are going to be sunk in a serious, not even a recession, we're going to be in a depression.
Yeah.
I
said to a group of white women the other day when we were having a discussion about, do we wear bracelets or do we march or what are we going to do? And I said, I want you to study. I want you to go back and find and read about the white women that helped Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad. They did not go, Harriet, I got a blue bracelet on. Bring them over here. I'll help you. Got a blue. No. They were quiet. They were co-conspirators. They had codes where they would show up and they helped hide the former enslaved. They helped hide them. And the white women who helped and who were abolitionists at the time for their time were quiet. And their actions spoke. So did we ever learn that? No, but that's part of that again, it's part of that delusion. Instead, I'd rather do something performative than do something that's quiet, but that's part of the history. And so I think that's why we do it. We do it because we don't want to break that bubble of white supremacy delusion.
But I think once that bubble's broken, I think the scales will come off a lot of people's eyes if they allow it to. Of
course.
I mean,
of course.
You've already mentioned it earlier, Kelly. White supremacy hurts white people as well, because not only did this election cycle show that, it shows that you voted for your best interest, but you also voted against the interest of someone else.
Correct.
And I mean, I think what you guys are talking about speaks volumes, especially with this election cycle now completed, and everybody knows who the incoming president is, and also what that means for a great many people. Now, granted, again, I've spoken to people on both sides of the fence. You know, people on the left are disappointed, and they had their emotional moment, but also in the same instance, they asked an important question. What's next? Where do we go from here? How do we pick up the pieces and keep moving forward in the hope of what this nation is supposed to be, and the potential that it could be if, and I mean, there's a big if here, if people just learn to understand each other, learn to just kind of coexist with each other. I think Rodney King said something that said a phrase that still reverberates in my soul, but it makes sense to me. Can we all just get along? Can we just coexist in the same space without you having abject hate for me or me having abject hate for you? Can we just get along and just kind of just get in the same space and just say, hey, I consider you, it doesn't matter what your skin color is, I consider you my brother and my sister.
Yeah, I wish that. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, listen, for me and
It's a
Kelly,
pipe dream for me, but I mean,
yeah.
and I guess, and I say it for me because for me, I guess how I greet people, regardless of who you are or what your skin tone is, I call them brother, call them sister. You know, I have white counterparts at my job. You know, I call those guys, I call those guys brother, I call those women sister because I consider them that. But
Mhm.
I also consider to say that I also temper that with caution too. I
Oh
consider you
yeah,
that until you prove to me that you're not.
yeah.
But then I'm not gonna respond in a violent manner. I'm just gonna put distance.
Mhm.
So I mean, for I guess for me, that's something that reverberates with me because it's I guess I've been taught more to kind of coexist with people. I mean, and just like I said, from I'm a kid that grew up, you know, born in the 70s, raised in the 80s, went to the military, witnessed
Mm,
what happened to Rodney King, saw what happened during the LA riots.
mhm,
Not personally saw it, but saw it on TV and was mortified, not only because of what happened to Rodney King, but also to what happened to that city of Los Angeles. Because all of a sudden everything's up in smoke and everybody's looting and
mhm.
you know, and then Rodney King comes in and says, can we all just get along? And you know, it poses it for me, it always poses that particular question. I mean, for a lot of people, that particular question has already been answered because it been answered with an emphatic no. Because some people do believe that that's an impossibility. You know, everybody coexisting as one is a stark impossibility because and I've heard people say, well, there's too many differences between us. And I get that. But like I said, but what Kelly said made so much sense to me when she mentioned the white supremacy thing. I'm like, dang. And I never thought that it hurt. I never thought that it hurt white people. I'd always thought that it was always in the best interest of white people. But
Mhm.
Well,
now when you mention
that's
it,
the delusion.
see,
Right.
That's the delusion.
Yep.
man,
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
to know that for me to know that teaching that education is a integral part of social justice really just opened my eyes
Mhm.
to understand that and teaching history is part of that social justice. And when you remove that part of it, you eliminate a lot. You pretty much effectively eliminate a lot of knowledge that could have been learned from both ends. But then also like what Kelly said, well, I don't want to be blamed for that. I don't want nobody pointing fingers at me saying that I was responsible for that. No one's pointing fingers at you. We just want you to know. We
And you
want
Yeah.
you to
don't want to replicate it.
Yeah. You
Because
don't want to
what
repeat
you're
it.
seeing happen is it's the replication because of the lack of the history and the knowledge. So you're going to replicate something or think it's a new construct somehow, and you don't even know where it's coming from. And again, that's why I think for us as educators, this is so important because the children enter the system at ages 3 now in preschool, 3 and 4 years old, and in the education system they're being socialized in it. They're being socialized in a number of ways. They're being socialized by gender. They're being socialized by race. They're being socialized about their behavior. And that takes them all the way through the track. So when you can have a mass incarceration prison system, when you think about mass incarceration and you see the disproportionality of Black males in
Mhm.
that system, you see it happening in elementary schools early with the over disciplining and over identification of special education for Black kids.
Mhm. Wow.
And you're like, oh, the trajectory is set. And the gender norms are set early on. What girls are supposed to do and boys are supposed to do, down to the toys and what they're allowed to play with and explore with. Oh, that's a girl toy and that's a boy toy. And you wear this color and you wear that color and that's a girl name and that's a boy. Like all of those things happen in terms of the cycle of socialization that brings them through adulthood. And
Mhm.
until we, so to answer, like, can we all just get along? We can, if people are willing to do the work like Kelly and I are doing.
Mm.
We're
There's work to
trying
do
to set
first.
the example of what it could look like to have conversations like this. To get to this point required years of us having these conversations that
Right.
we can kind of pussyfoot around. And we were just like, we're just going to talk to each other. If we hurt each other's feelings, we're going to say it. If we like, don't feel like this moment right now where I'm seeing on TikTok where Black women are like, white girls, bye. Don't ask me for nothing. Right. Me and Kelly got to wrestle with that because
Mm.
she's my partner in this work. And, we co-wrote a book to show something, but there's some Black women are like, white people, not right now. I'm going to see you in 4 years. I'm in my head going, can I trust white women knowing in the way that they voted for a
Mm.
man who doesn't see that I'm worthy, who called a Black woman a whore and a bitch and unintelligent. And she has more credentials than he does. Like, can I actually sit next to you and think that you don't see me with those same eyes? Right? So we are as partners are wrestling with the sign of the times for us. And what does that mean for our partnership, for our business, for our book? Because people hurt is not even the word. It's a deep, visceral, I am so done. It was deception at its core that happened, that
Yeah.
broke folks. That was like, you know what? You were down for the Kamala, and
All of
then
a sudden now.
and didn't. And now you want to be my friend, and just like, but you have to understand. What do I have to understand? You did a Jedi mind trick on me. No. So
No,
all that to
no,
say,
Anakin. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
right, like a little Padawan. No,
Yeah.
but Kelly and I have to wrestle with that as a couple, in a partnership in this, and talk about it. I mean, we're talking about it because it does have implications for the
Mhm.
work we're trying to do, and and I understand it. I get it.
Right.
I
I
get
mean,
it.
just listening to Kelly, I mean, I I'm just gonna say this and just really just be very honest and upfront with it. I think that she understands more than I think the
Yeah.
average white person would understand.
Or the
And
ones
that's
in
and
your circle, maybe the ones in
yeah,
your
and
circle. We
them
always
were the
like,
ones that
y'all
hell
not
yeah,
stealing
the
my
ones in my
Kelly.
circle, yes.
She's
The,
mine.
the ones in my
Well,
circle, yes.
and
But
let me make clear. I think I say this in the book. I wasn't born with knowing how to be an ally, an accomplice. Like, I wasn't. There's work to be done,
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
and and the work has to start with us, not with me coming to Kendra and say, teach me, how
Yeah.
can I be safe for you? What? No, I have to do that work, and I
mhm,
have to do some internal work because I've internalized the racism that I have experienced, I've seen, I've been a part of. I mean, I talk about my dad's side of the family's from deep South Mississippi. So there's stuff in my side of the family.
mhm.
And so I've got to unwrap. Ugh, see, unwrap. I need
You
to
mean this? You mean this book?
I need to
Oh,
unwrap
this book.
that. So
Mhm.
so I don't want to leave anyone, especially Black women, with the impression that, well, there are, she just came. No, I had to do what I needed to do, and I have to continue to do that work so it
Mhm.
doesn't end. I'm still reading, I'm still learning, I'm still going, I'm still, I follow certain women on TikTok who are anti-racism teachers, and that's what they want to do. I'm learning from them. I'm learning from Kendra, having conversations. I need to be open to Kendra calling me out. And Kelly, you know what? This optic was bad. This didn't look. Let's not do this anymore. Let's think about this.
Same.
So all of that to just say that, is it possible? Yeah, but there's a whole lot of unwrapping that white women need to do in order to, And for me, when I entered this work, what made me one of my motivations for this work, what makes me sad, is how much humanity we are missing from each other, because not all women can fully show up in their authenticity, and we are missing each other, and I don't want to be robbed of that. And I hope, and my message out to white women is, your life is richer when you can do that work, and you can be a part of that community. But at the same time, Kendra has her own Black woman community. I get that. She has that. I'm trying to figure out where I live how to get a white
Yep.
woman community together, because I'm not even sure which of these white women I trust either. I mean, I'm just trying to figure that out. But that's one of my missions now after this election, is to get my own community together, my own white sisterhood together, so we can have some really tough conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it begins with the tough conversations. I mean,
Yep.
you two crossed the bridge and said, okay, let's have this conversation.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how tough it is. If I hurt your feelings, you hurt my feelings. Okay, we're going to acknowledge that, but we're going to keep moving forward and keep having these conversations. And
No white women tears.
Yep.
and that's what's needed. I mean, that these conversations are needed. The conversation that we're having right now is something that's needed, because I mean, we don't know what's gonna we have an idea of what's gonna happen in the next 4 years, but
We really
it's
don't know.
We don't
but
know.
at the same time, I mean, we have an idea, but we don't know when when all this is gonna be implemented, when all this is gonna take place. We have an idea of to whom it's going to impact,
Yeah.
to
I
whom
mean,
it's going to affect greatly.
And
just
when
We
read
don't know
Project
when.
2025 and you'll see what is going to happen, right?
Mhm.
What's being put.
that's the platform.
Yeah, that's the blueprint. And actually there is a Black 2025, and young lady has, like, I don't know how many followers now. I mean, there is a movement to butt up against that. And
Yeah.
that's what needs to happen. But
100%. So
yeah,
But
for
that,
sure.
and I have to stress that a movement is only as powerful as the people who involve
And
themselves
yep.
in it.
Yep. And it's young folks. I mean, this is a young lady, and you always say that, the best movements got started on college campuses and then schools. And so talk about
True.
education being a place of social justice. That's where it happens.
Huh.
Young
I
folks,
I would agree.
our own
Yeah.
children are going to be the ones that are going to save us from ourselves.
hmm The best, like you said, the best movement started on somebody's school campus.
That's right. That's right. So we're going to see it rise up again for sure.
Oh yeah, most
Yeah.
definitely. Ladies, look, I'm gonna tell y'all right now, I've enjoyed this conversation with y'all, because, like I said, for me, it's been an eye opener for me.
It's been
Because
educational, Fred.
Yeah.
You got your social justice teaching right here.
Yeah,
look how that happens.
because it lets me know. Because it also lets me know what how much more work I have to do.
Yeah.
Mm.
When again, you guys mentioned a pivot point
Yep.
with George Floyd losing his life at the hands of an officer, and the subsequent fallout from that.
Yep.
Then Breonna Taylor, the subsequent fallout from that. Now, if I can probably take it back a little further, as far as like Philando Castile, Alton
Yes.
Sterling,
Yeah.
Yes. Sure.
the guy in South Carolina, Walter Scott.
You can
And-
go back to Amadou Diallo in 1990. What year? 48th precinct in the Bronx.
Yeah.
He got shot up because they say he had a wallet gun. He was taking out his wallet to show his ID.
And for me, like I said, for me, that pivot point was, now for me, my own personal pivot point, and this just to kind of be a bit transparent for me, my pivot point and the catalyst for me that kind of started, I won't say kind of, it started in 2015 when I lost my own child to police violence. So that was my own personal catalyst. And my viewpoints on certain things were so different.
Oh yeah.
So and very much skewed because, and again, this is something I don't wish on no parent at all, at all, and because it was a harrowing experience to understand, and then kind of as I went through my own process to understand it doesn't go like it doesn't go like it's been like it's average like they show it on a TV screen.
Uh-huh.
It's a completely different process, and it literally drains you of any type of emotion, any type of um feeling or anything of that for that nature. And for me, that was my pivot point, and it just intensified every time I saw something like that,
I can't
whether it
even.
was on TV or whether I saw it in the news. And then it got to a point to where I became desensitized.
Yeah.
And then watching what happened for George Floyd for those those damn near 9 minutes
Yep.
reignited that fire. And I'm like, but at the same time, it brought me right back to that point of helplessness for me,
Mm.
and wondering if like if my voice was enough, if what I was saying was enough. Of course, I've made a lot of posts on social media, things of that nature. But but as we all know, you can only get so far with social media when you're talking about stuff like that, because of course the powers that be, you can't
Mm-hmm.
talk about that. It's not. We're gonna take your post down. Okay, cool. Take it down. I'll find another platform. No problem. But that was my pivot point. But it also showed me how much more I have to learn, not only about myself, but also about how I can leverage what I'm doing, not only as a podcaster, to help you ladies, and to reach whatever goals those are. And I just learned that just by talking to you guys. And I'm asking myself while we're talking, what can I do to help? What can I do to help them leverage, put
Mm-hmm.
themselves in a better position to to put yourselves in.
We
There
want
we
to
go.
sell
Wait, Fred, let us help you.
10,000 of these books. Unwrapped: The Pursuit of Justice for Women Educators. We want to sell 10,000. We want to put 10,000 of these books in the hands of women.
And you can learn all about us at Lucy, Lucy, LucyLeadershipProject.com, our website. There's a link there to buy the book. You can buy the book for you, buy the book for a colleague, buy the book for, and if there's a woman in your life who's a leader or aspiring leader and they're not in education, the issues are the same. We just talk from our own experience. So you can even buy it for another woman, if you have a daughter, if you have a niece, whoever that is. They make great Christmas presents. So
They do.
holiday presents, whatever. And we'll have on there also, if you follow us on social media, again, Lucy Leadership Project, you'll be able to see, we'll put out posts of everything we have coming up. And December 10th,
Yep.
from 6:30 to 8
Yes, all right.
that evening is when we're going to gather our Unwrapped community, and that's all of you. Gather our Unwrapped community on Zoom, and we're going to do a little bit of a well-being opener. We're looking into having maybe a guest come and speak to us for a little while, and then we'll get into some groups, and we'll have some conversation around where do we go from here, from an education and women's perspective. And then, of course, I'll just say it. Kendra and I do a lot of workshops on all kind of different topics. So if you are in need of something like that, or a keynote or anything, we do that all the time. We can design something, even if it's on what we were working on today, designing something very different for a women's conference that looks very different than what we traditionally do. So anything. And then, also Lucy Leadership Project at Gmail. If you have questions, email us.
Yep.
email at Gmail. If you go into the website, you can subscribe to our newsletter, which will give you everything every month that you need. So Fred, thank you so much for letting me do that few minutes of a commercial. I appreciate you for that.
Yes.
But we really want to grow this community. We want you to grow your own unwrapped communities where you are, because I think more than ever we need each other right now.
Oh, for sure. We will
More than
need each
ever.
other. We will need each other even more. So yeah, thank you, Fred, for this platform, and thank you for those who came and joined and watched and
Yeah.
wrote some comments. So appreciate everyone for just being supportive.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
I'm appreciative of this conversation, man. So, look, the
Thanks, Fred.
ladies and gentlemen of the authorsality community, I want to introduce to some and reintroduce to some and introduce to others Dr. Kendra Washington Bass and Miss Kelly Peaks Horner. These are the authors of Unwrapped. I want you guys to please do me a favor. I want you to go follow these guys. Check out their website, LucyLeadershipProject.com. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach them also at LucyLeadershipProject@gmail.com. Look, the goal is for these ladies. The main goal is for these ladies to get this book in the hand of 10,000 women.
Let's
I
build
don't
this
see why. I don't
community.
see why that's not. I don't see why that's. I don't see that being an issue.
Yeah. Let's do this.
You go,
I
Fred.
don't see that being an issue.
It shouldn't be an issue, especially if you are feeling a little guilty. This is a good way to, this is a guilt buy.
Yeah.
Indeed. But also do me a favor as myself being an author myself.
Yes.
Please, whatever, leave a review for these ladies. Reviews, good or bad or indifferent. They help us. They help us.
Sure.
They help us develop, they help us improve as writers. They also help us develop more engaging content and also more subjects for people to think about.
Yep.
So and I think in this particular dispensation of time, this book is very timely. I think I really do think that, and if you ladies don't mind, I want to leave this one last word for all our audience. Social justice it's an ever-changing landscape. It starts with the education of our kids. If we remove the social justice aspect from the education aspect of it, we are effectively neutering our children.
Yep.
They will know half a history and not know the whole history. Racial bias is something that is ingrained in pretty much all of us, some more prevalent than others. But it's imperative that we address that when it is put out there. Call people out on their bias and let those folks take accountability for that bias. Kelly said it best. White supremacy hurts white people also.
Mm-hmm.
We know that it's been hurting. We know that it's been hurting us as Black people, but it hurts white people also because, like Kelly said earlier, we vote for and against our best interest.
Mm-hmm.
I want everybody. It doesn't matter your gender. It doesn't matter your race. I want you guys to look deeper into yourselves and ask yourself, is my bias holding someone that doesn't look like me back? Is it putting someone else is it putting someone that doesn't look like me in an untenable position? And then I want you to look even deeper. Look at your mothers, your sisters, your aunts, your nieces. Is your bias towards them putting them in an untenable position? Is it holding them back from achieving whatever goals they're trying to achieve? Are you the one that is holding a fellow woman back? And women and sisters, I want you to look at that too. Are your biases against another sister holding that sister back?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they are, then you are inherently a part of the problem.
Yep.
but also you're also the solution. But it requires a mind change. It requires a shift in your ideology and what you believe to be true. Again, Kelly said it best. White supremacy is a delusion.
Mhm.
And also I'm gonna add an illusion. An illusion of something that doesn't really exist, because no one race is superior to another. We should all be equal up under God. However, that's not how the powers that be see it. I commend these ladies on their journey, their continuous journey to not only continue to have these difficult conversations with each other, but also have these difficult conversations with their constituents and with their contemporaries. It is these conversations that will move the needle forward.
Mm.
But allyship isn't enough.
Right.
You have to move from allyship to co-conspirator, because if you're going to be an ally, you're going to have to want to risk something, and you're going to have to be willing to pay a price for whatever you're risking. This is At this particular moment in time, that is more important now than ever, because for the next 4 years there's going to be uncertainty, there's going to be chaos, there's going to be disruption, there's also going to be uncertainty. Where we stand in that uncertainty is going to be dependent upon our mindsets.
Mm.
Have we shifted enough? Have we shifted our mindsets enough? Have we thought about the consequences of our actions? Not just our forefathers' actions, but the actions that we take. Of course, our forefathers paid the price for whatever actions they took, but those actions still reverberate to this day. And are you willing to be a disruptor to the system, or are you gonna stay mired in the system? That's the question. Ladies and gentlemen, again, introducing Kendra Washington Bass and Kelly Peace Horner, the awesome authors of Unwrapped. Again, check them out at their website, Lucy Leadership Lucy Leadership Project.com.
Thank
And
you.
also, I want this book to be in the hands of 10,000, actually more than 10,000 women.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's
We
go,
love-
Fred.
Go for it. Let's do 100,000. Why not? Let's
Hey.
go exponentially higher.
Let's do that. Let's do that. And if there's anything that I can do, ladies, to help you guys, achieve that goal, if it's anything that you guys need from me as far as getting the word out about an event, or even if you guys want me to participate in an event, I would be
Yeah.
more than happy to do so. I mean,
That would be awesome.
I know I have a very unique opinion about certain things. I haven't done politics in a long while, and so I try to dive into that. But things so far as social justice is concerned,
Mhm.
I'm all in for that. So
Awesome.
if you guys if you guys need me to like help moderate a session, or even as a guest speaker, I am more than open to that. And that's
Thank
something
you.
we can talk about offline if you guys want.
Excellent. Thank you. That
Fred.
would be awesome. Thanks,
welcome.
Fred. This has been wonderful. Appreciate the time, and thank you for the platform. This is amazing.
Thank
So-
you very much.
Very
Thanks.
welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to end this episode of the Author's Alley. But don't worry, tune in tomorrow, because I have another excellent guest in tomorrow. Mr. Malcolm Banks is in the building. We're going to be talking about his journey from just a photographer to a filmmaker, and then he has a powerful movie called Seven's Law. And I'm gonna tell y'all, from watching it, I got some questions, but we're gonna ask those questions to Malcolm tomorrow. So make sure you guys tune in again at 6 p.m. When Trailblazers presents Malcolm Banks. Ladies and gentlemen, I've enjoyed this conversation with these two powerful women, and we're gonna take you guys home with another song that I think is going to be that I think is going to be needed in these next 4 years. So, song's called "Therapy" by Moostar Dash.
Yes.
As I always say, these podcasts: number one, take care of each other. Number two, be good to each other. Number three, we all know it's a crazy ass world out here. So please, above all things, be safe out there, y'all.
Yeah.
I love y'all, and I will see you guys in the next one.
overcame what they hated. I'ma give myself congratulations because I made it. I'm on a whole new dimension. These miracles on top of blessings. Tell your followers to mention. Let me breathe. I'ma count 1, 2, 3. I'm not gonna lose no sleep. I'm on a whole new vibration. Not losing my patience because I got my peace. Can't nobody take from me. Therapy. Another switched up on you. The pain you thought you'd never get through. People change, seasons change, the levels raining all on you. It gets better from here. It gets better from here. Favor looking good on me. No pressure, it's time to seek. Therapy. Oh, it's okay to have therapy.